This review is going to be done on 31 by Rob Zombie. Uh, I just watched the movie. Um, I've always liked Rob Zombie's music. I've got every one of his albums that he's released. I love Rob Zombie, even though I may not like some of his albums that have been put out. I still like him. He's overall the majority of his music got me into heavier music. There were other bands, but he was one of those bands that got me into music. And then he started making films. Halloween, the very first one that he directed, uh, the one that he directed, his version, I enjoyed a lot. I think that might have been everything that I'd hoped for in a remake of Halloween. And then the second one came along, and that let me down quite a bit. What was that noise? That let me down quite a bit. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I can't tell you, scene for scene what let me down. But I didn't get the feel of it like I did from the first one. The first one, Michael Myers was a brutal killing machine. He's always been brutal, or he's always been a killing machine, but he's never been brutal. I mean, it was unlike anything I've seen from Michael Myers, and I'm glad Rob Zombie was able to portray that in a different manner. But now we're going to do 30. We're going to talk about 31, and right off the bat, this has to be the best movie he's ever made. Devil's Rejects. I love Devil's Rejects. It was just one thing about Rob Zombie is every one of his films like it feels like you're walking into a haunted house. You'd never know what's going to come around the corner. There's going to be some darkness, some weird trickeries, and almost everyone you encounter is going to have some demented personality, some cynical way of going about the movie. In 31, every scene is just it's darkened with that Rob Zombie humor. He's always got he's funny. I love his material. It's hilarious. It's dark and it's vulgar, but vulgarity doesn't impress me very much. It doesn't make me laugh. Uh, I can't stand vulgarity for humor, but there's certain things that pass, and Rob Zombie's is more darkness than anything, more obscenities with a lot of cuss words, and there's a lot of cussing in this movie, but it's Rob Zombie, and it's five carnival workers, and they get abducted by a very well casted group of villains. As a matter of fact, the opening scene, you see Roger Brake, and if you've seen Halloween 2, Roger Brake was in that van when they hit that cow. That was Roger Brake, or as I like to call him, Budget Tom Petty, and he was phenomenal in this. I mean, he was, Jared Leto in as the Joker. It was horrible. If they had put him as the Joker in the Suicide Squad, it would have been the best DC movie I've ever seen. He needs to be the Joker after watching this movie. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but once you see, you'll understand. But yeah, the five carnival workers, they get kidnapped, I guess you could say, and they're playing the game 31, and it's kind of like the Purge, except it's secluded. It's not a citywide thing, and obviously it's still illegal. Um, but I believe they get weapons throughout the, well, one of them, Sherry Moon Zombie, she gets a weapon. It's a bat, and that's about it. They don't have a whole lot of weapons. I mean, there's even a part in the movie where they say we need better weapons, and they do. They get them, but they run into two of what they call heads. That's the villains. The last part of their name is head something. You know, sick head, sex head, death head, doom head, and I can't remember the other head. But yeah, these heads have chainsaws, and thus you're going to get a little bit of gore from the chainsaws. I'm not going to spoil too much for you. I don't want to spill my guts on it. Oh man, that was a bad pun. But anyways, one of the more interesting casts in this film was from the villain Sexhead, played by E.G. Daly. If you're familiar with E.G. Daly, you'll be just as surprised as I was. That's Tommy Pickles from the Rugrats. Beautiful woman. When I first heard her voice in the movie, I seen her on the movie, and there's a scene where she comes into play before she's cast, or before she's as the villain, and I'm like, man, she sounds familiar. I couldn't think if it was Tara Strong. I knew it wasn't Tara Strong, but she had that feeling like a voice actress's sound. And yeah, she's Tommy freaking Pickles. So that's a childhood moment ruined. But this movie was honestly one of the best movies Rob Zombie's ever made. I just can't. I think the key point of this movie was Roger Brake's performance as Doomhead. He was intimidating for this guy that sounds like Tom Petty, lanky fella, but he was intimidating. I still think he needs to be the Joker. I think they need to get rid of Jared Leto and put him as the Joker. Whatever that performance was that Jared Leto did was just garbage. If this could be, I mean, Roger Brake. I've seen him act in a few movies, particularly pretty messed up movies. He's always a bad guy. That's the thing. He's always some bad guy, and he's perfect for it. If I seen him as a good guy in a role, I don't believe I could take it seriously. He's perfect, and he probably does a spot on Tom Petty impression. It's crazy. But also the music in this movie was done by none other than Rob Zombie's guitarist for his band, John Five. As a matter of fact, I think there was like 4 people involved in making this music, and it was perfect. It was like it wasn't just guitar riffs, it was synth riffs. It sounded almost 80s sounding, like a synthwave sound. It fit perfectly for certain scenes. Sent chills up my spine. So, the cast was perfect. The dialogue was great. And yeah, there's several gore scenes. To be honest, it's actually not as gory as I had anticipated it to be. I've seen much worse. But Rob Zombie did what he did, and he made a good movie. He made one of the best movies he's ever made, probably since The Devil's Rejects, or no, actually, I think House of a Thousand Corpses. House of a Thousand Corpses was, yeah, it has Chris Hardwick in it too, if you didn't know that. But yeah, Rob Zombie outdid himself with this one, and I highly recommend watching this movie if you like Rob Zombie. And Malcolm McDowell. I mean, he's in it. You won't be disappointed.